I started recording Dad's memories in January 2003. Due to Dad's health problems, we didn't get much past Eddie's birth. Hope you enjoy hearing Dad's voice and story. Okay, this is January 16th, 2003, and Dad is going to tell memories of his growing up and his childhood. Okay, why don't you start out with when you were born and...
Oh, yeah. I was born October 17, 1916 in Funston, Georgia. I have a family of 4 boys and 1 girl. And I can remember some of the things back in 1925, places like that where we moved from. We moved around quite a bit. And just one place we moved to, my dad was supposed to be, we were supposed to be in the sharecroppers. We moved there in 1926. And then we were able to get the crop made. Then we moved to another place later. And then we moved to there in 1920, last part of 1926. Spent Christmas there at that place. And then we moved over to another place in 1927. And that's when I was going to school there at the little old central school there in South Georgia. And we worked on the farm there, and pretty hard times during the Depression years. And I got sick, and I had to go to the hospital and went to the Archibald Memorial Hospital in Thomasville, Georgia. Spent a month and 3 weeks there. Come home just before Christmas. 13th of November, come out of the hospital the 22nd day of December, 1927. And then my folks didn't have much work to do, and we did what we could. We just worked around on the farm for what little we could get. Yeah, my dad and him there in 1927, when we lived at that place, he was working for this guy digging stumps and doing whatever they could get to do. And it sure was a rough time at that time. We went without a lot of things that we needed, and we worked for these people. And some of them people was real good to us. They treated us real nice, but some of them weren't so nice. And they wanted us to work. We worked, or they did work for them. My older brother was Charlie, and my second brother was Jack, and the other one was James, and the other one was George. But my sister was right next to me, and she was, her name was Mineola.
What memories do you have of your grandparents? You don't remember
I
anything
never
about?
did see them.
You didn't see your grandparents?
Never did see my grandparents.
Mm.
We just learned in Georgia. Boy, I tell you, it was a rough time then. There's one time, this is up in the 30s. I guess it might have been 31 or 32. This old gentleman come around. We didn't know where he come from or what. He stayed with us about a week or longer. And he asked my dad if he'd ever tried meal mush. My dad told him no, and he told him to bring some, when he went to town, to bring back some canned milk. So my dad did, and they had my mom to boil a whole bunch of meal, and kind of like grits, a bunch of meal and stuff, and poured that canned milk into it. And then we eat that pretty good. But it was better not having anything at all. Mm. And I don't know what happened to that old gentleman. They took him back uptown, somewhere back into town. And it wasn't a week till he was right back there. So he stayed with us then for maybe another week. Then he just took off walking, and I don't know whatever happened to the old gentleman. Mm. Never did find out. Mm. So we had some pretty rough times during the Depression years. I can remember another time in 1928, I can remember when the Pentecostal movement come around there, and they built a big arbor down there, a brush arbor. A big brush arbor, and they was really having real meetings there nice. And they'd get to shouting and run all over the place there. And it sure was something. And then I remember, then after that, me and my mom went to the big Oklahoma Baptist church. She took me there. So there I made I went forward and made a decision to follow the Lord. And the old preacher, he talked to me, he was an old guy, he was sure a nice old guy. And he asked me if I'd like to be baptized, and I told him I did. So he told me. Then the next following Sunday, we went back, and he took me down there to Big Oak Lightning River. And I joined the Big Oak Lightning Baptist Church in 1928, was baptized in Big Oak Lightning River. And then after that, I didn't really go to church a lot after that too much, because we didn't know the way to get there, and it was too far away from the churches. So then later, we went to, then we was having such a bad time, and that was right after about the time, about 28, 1929, about 19 and 30, 33, 1932, Roosevelt was elected. He took office in 1933. And that's when he started the Civilian Conservation Corps. And then I went there, and I went and got there, and it was in 1937 before I got into that. But a friend of mine come down and asked me why I didn't get into the CC camps, and I didn't know. And he told me that I'd get $30 a month, and he'd send 25 home to my parents, and I'd get $5 in for spending money. So I went from Georgia right away. I went and signed up, and they called me in to take a physical, and I went right on up. And I went to Franklin, North Carolina first in the CC camps. I worked, when I got old enough to work, I worked out on the farm with the other people. In 1925, I was late, wasn't working. And I remember 1925, my dad left home, and he come back with a wagon and mules to haul us away, move us to another place. We went down there, and these people was real good to us. And then we stayed for a little while down there, and we moved back to the same place at that time. And then another time we was living on this guy's place and working for him. He was a pretty rough old guy. And we had to drive up his cows every day. And he got real mad at us because we didn't get it done. He come down there and got after us, and me and my sister went out and scared to death of him. My brother, Charlie, he was the oldest in our family. He had to be the kind of the protector, I guess. And my dad had been sick for quite a long time. And these people, whenever they killed hogs and had them ready, we had to take a wagon load of meat down to this place down there and sell it out to the people there. And I'd go early in the morning and take the wagon and the meat down there, and then I'd pedal it out through the city, out parts of the city. And then this guy, he'd come down there then after that, and when I got it all sold, he had a car, he'd go home, and I'd come back there and bring the wagon and mules back. It was getting dark when I'd leave and come back. We'd come back, and I was just me by myself, and the mules had worked pretty good together, and they brought us on back to this place. And I had to put them up. I don't remember what time we got back home, but we had to work about all the time. This is just before the Depression hit, and it was pretty bad on us. But them people, they had plenty of everything, and they didn't seem to care anything about the people who were working for them. They didn't try to help much. But I could use the word, his first name was Bob, and that's what we called him, Bob. Yeah, and then during the summertime when we had watermelons and cantaloupe and all that stuff, and he'd load the wagon down with that stuff, and I'd take it in the mules and take it into Thomasville. And I'd pedal them out. One day didn't have anything to eat and didn't take it with me. And when he was down there, I asked him about buy me a hamburger. And he wouldn't buy the hamburger. He had to take some of the cantaloupes down there and traded the cantaloupe for the hamburgers. He didn't want to spend any money because I guess money was real short at that time. But he didn't mind us working for that, just not paying us much for the work. Yeah, I remember a long time ago, when we lived in a community, and there's a Methodist church there and a Baptist, well, if that was the only one there was in that area, the Methodist church, we'd go to the Methodist church. And if there was a Baptist church, we'd go to the Baptist church. We went in the morning part of the day pretty good. So, but one thing too, I think of so much is how we went. We went in a two-horse wagon. My dad had asked the guy, the farmer, if he could use it, and they told him yeah. So we all loaded up on that, and I was swinging. I remember swinging on the back of the wagon and going to church. That's not been very old. And, no, I wasn't very old. I must have been 9, 10 years old. Don't remember what year that was, and then I remember another time they went. I didn't go. If I did, I come back, but I didn't go with them. And they invited my parents to go home for dinner with them. So they went went home with them. We went home, or they did, went home with them. And they was telling when he come back about a dinner, they had, and all. Boy, I sure wish I'd have went then, but I didn't. So I can see my mom today sitting up in that wagon. They had a seat on them, with the springs on it kind of. And she was sitting up in the front with my dad, and then driving down the road. Here, his kids was running alongside of it and running behind it, jumping up and down on it. We was having a lot of fun that way. So we went after that. After that, I think I mentioned about us leaving where we was working at, where my folks worked, and moved somewhere else. And we moved way down here at Medcap, Georgia. And my dad, he was supposed to put farming down there. And after he got down there, he didn't do any farming much. And this is, wasn't hardly time of year, but the guy didn't bring stuff down for him to use. And he dug a well, or dug most of it. Didn't have no water there, and he dug a well. And one thing I can remember too is me and my brother, we started the school, and I guess I don't know, my sister was old enough. Started school, and whenever we went to school, they'd stop off with these other kids there, and that lady, she thought my face was awful dirty, so she washed my face and got me fixed up, ready to go. So we headed up the road. I don't remember nothing much about school. I wasn't very old then either, about 8 or 9 years old. And we did that. We went on to the school. And then my dad decided he'd move back. And he went and seen the guy that he was living in this place. And where we moved from, and he went back and seen him. He'd come back and he told me, yeah, he could come on back. So he got his horse, mules, and wagon. Next thing you know, here he was pulling up in the front. Took us on all loaded up, headed back up to that same place, he was a real nice guy. We did go when we went to school there, we went to Pebble Hill. I don't remember now just where that was, but we went that way. And I remember one day me and my sister coming back, I think it must have been about 25. Me and my sister was coming back from school, and somebody told us back there, they chipped the trees to get the pitch out of them. And something broke his rig that he chipped it with. Somebody threw it, and somebody drove a nail in there right where he's going to messed it up. And they told us that the sheriff was looking for somebody that had done that. Me and my sister went home and told up Nanny. We was afraid the sheriff was looking for us. That was quite a deal. And then we had Christmas there at that place, and my dad, he went and got the chair. And I didn't know about Santa Claus. I didn't know what it was. Didn't know that it really wasn't Santa Claus. But I didn't know it wasn't your parents, so he went out and took the chair, and he drug it up the road in the dirt and gravel. Well, I don't think he gravel up the dirt road. We was out there looking, seeing what that was. He said, Oh, he said, that's where Santa Claus's sled went. We didn't know he was doing that. But in the arena back there before we moved back up there, we had Christmas down there though, in that Metcalf. And I went through the different room where he had the stuff kind of staked out. Well, I found some oranges and candy and stuff in there. That was after Santa Claus had come and gone. I said, what in the world, how come that in there? My dad told me, he said, Santa Claus in a hurry to get away, and he stumped. We had a bed up, like that with the railings and everything. And he said he got hung over that and fell and run off. I'll just tell you all kinds of tales like that. Then my brother George, he was born there then, not not uh, not Nedgap, but there what that 25, where they moved back to. We moved away from there, and then we moved back. He worked for them people all the time. And then and then 1926, we had, they were shirt cropping, my folks was. And this old guy and his kid, he had a lot of goats. I'll tell you, he had a lot of them. And they'd come up, we lived in an old house that had wooden shutters and wooden shutters on the door and on the windows. And if you didn't have no screens or anything, if you shut that door, open that door, that old Billy goat, he'd come in there. And he'd go through the house, and we'd run him out, and he'd come back in there. Me and my sister devised a good way to keep him from coming in there. I went and got me a big corn cob. I went and got me a big corn cob, and I got me a bottle of Spirits Turpentine, and my sister held him, and I rubbed his old bottom good with it, and pulled his tail on the rope that good. Then Dice that Spirits Turpentine and walk. Did that goat go out of there scooting on his back end like a dog does. And then the old house didn't have no attic in it, and I had it right at the corner, in the left corner, I believe it was. Had to go to there's a place up there, and there was bumblebees. I think it was bumblebees. It could have been hornets, but I think it's bumblebees. And one got in her hair, and boy, she went out of the house and just screaming, and I went out after her, and I kind of got it out of her hair and went back. And then right after that, we moved to another place, and that was in the fall of 26, and or winter, I mean. And she climbing up and had her picket fence, they call it then. And she was up on that and walking along that on her, with she, I don't know what in the world, she just tomboy like, walking on that and fell off and broke her arm. My dad had to take her somewhere, I don't know where about to tell her, but he got it fixed up. And that was 1926 when we had Christmas there. I don't know how accurate now that I'm getting this, but about the Christmas time. Then we moved over to another place, and my dad them dug stumps, and that was in 1927. Dug stumps for 10 cents out of the ground. See, they're clearing the stuff where they could plant you out there. And that's where I went into the hospital in November. And I stayed in there a month and 1 week and 3 days. And then after that, me and my dad then was cutting wood. We were getting $3 for what we call a cord of wood. And that's the reason I didn't go to school much. I'd stay out and help and everything. And then in 1928, Hoover run for president, him and Roosevelt. Well, no, in 28, he run for president against that, I believe it was Al Smith, run against him. And Al Smith is a Catholic, and that's the reason he didn't get elected. That's the reason Hoover got elected. So Hoover was in there, and then Hoover got in and was signed in 1929. And that's when the bottom fell out of everything. The whole market thing crashed. I was reading about that in that Reminisce book we got here. And we was getting for that wood, though, we was cutting I believe, a 16-foot rick of wood, 4 foot high. And the wood was about 12 inches long. And we worked that, we get $3. And by the first, end of 29, end of 30, we got 75 cents a cord. That's what I call a cord. 75 cents a cord for that same rick of wood. We had to take it in potatoes or peas or whatever they had that we could have. That's the way they did that. And then that was 1928 when he was elected. And then again, 1932, I believe it was, 1932 was when Roosevelt ran. And he was elected and took over in 1933, took over 19. Well, he was elected in 1932. 32, yeah, he was elected in 32, took over in 1933. And it didn't gain much for a long time after that. I remember one time that lady there said, I'll give you a dozen eggs and your dinner. This hawk was carrying off her little turkey. She said, I'll give you a dozen eggs and your dinner, lunch. And so I went and got the old shotgun out and got me a shell and put in it. I went down there behind these where they dumped them, where they grind the cane. They had what we call them pummies in, I don't know what they. And so I went down and kind of bedded down in that and waited. Reckon he come in and lit in there, and when he lit, boy, I let down on him with that 12-gauge shotgun. I killed that, and I went on, took him on to the house to her. So I don't know if I ate lunch first and then went back down there. That's when I killed that hawk. I don't think she had any more for that. But I'd go around during the day and through the woods, and I'd set in holes and climb up tree and squirrel nests and things like that, looking for squirrels. And then a lot of times I'd punch that nest, the possum won't crawl out of it. And boy, there was some good meat. I'd get that possum down, come on down the tree, holding him out the other way and hugging that tree with one hand, and coming on, hit one right and got broke, killed out, climbing like I did. And I'd do a lot of that back then. I'd go out and head out in the woods. And this guy had some red bone and big red bone hounds. He usually was running deer down there in that country. And I'd scare up a rabbit. And boy, I'd go to yell for that dog. It wasn't no time for both them dogs. They was right there. Put them on his trail, and away they go. I seen that rabbit just go down like that. And that dog was standing straddle of it. You couldn't smell it or see it or anything. Scared it up, it took off again. And it'd go up in a hollow tree, like from the ground, it'd be hollow. That rabbit would go up in that, and the dog couldn't get it at all. Boy, they'd gnaw on that tree and try to get it. So I made bamboo, we call it bamboo vine. Cut it off, and it had them thorns on the end of it. And I'd stick that up there, and I know that rabbit, I could feel him. I'd stick that up there, and boy, I'd twist till I wound up a lot of his hide in that, and I'd pull that thing out of there. And I have skinned them almost alive with that thing. It wouldn't come out. There's a lot of that went on there. Yeah, then I went work on the farm with a guy he was a real nice guy. For $1 a day, for $1 a week, my board. And I was glad to get that board because they fed me real good. Oh, yeah. I was about 15. And he was a bootlegger. I remember when I was there, with him, and so he come in from somewhere, I don't know, he was in the car, and they put him out, and he went to get some booze for him. And he went somewhere down there and got a gallon of moonshine. And this guy was waiting out there for him. Boy, here he's coming up, just like he's coming up here, and he made it around the corner of the house. And when he did, that better lost. Boy, he turned that thing around and down through that field he went. I just knowed he was going to get caught. But he went down through there and he went over one we call a terrace or something fixed like a dike thing. And he went over and then he went down. I thought sure he'd fell. But he didn't. He went on down and hit it out. And, he come back around and I went to the house and he come back around and he said, you get my shoes and my clothes. That sheriff had went on down, that federal law went on down. And he said, get my clothes and bring them. See, didn't even have a shirt on, I think, to start with. So he run on. I went and done that. I got his skirt and pants and all, and his shoes, and I headed out. He was barefooted. I headed out down through that field with them clothes, and I got him down there and handed them to him, and he went to change and putting on his clothes and started back toward the house. And that old cop met him. He said, where you been? He said, I was in the town and just come back. He didn't have them clothes on when that sheriff came first. And he said, I didn't know it was him, said he chased, but he couldn't prove it without the booze. So he said, I was going down the back field. He seen me, but he didn't get a good glimpse of it. And that guy said, that cop said, who's that going down there? He said, oh, I think that was just a bush move, you see. And I went on down there and I buried that stuff for him down in way down in the field down there. But he was a good guy to work with. I worked for him. If he wanted me to just quit and go fishing or something, he'd say, put that mule up, we're going fishing. And he was really a nice guy. But that was a different time from when he caught was chased. But that was a federal law, so it was against the law to have any kind of alcohol beverage at that time. That was during what they call Prohibition. Yeah. So I can remember one time when he told me, he said, come on, I want you to go with me. I said, well, where are you going? He said, you'll find out, come on. He was a bootlegger. And he said, come on. And I went, and he said, crawl up on that truck. And I crawled up on that old truck. That must have been about a 29 year truck. So I crawled up on there. And he sat down there and pulled that jug right between me. So I got it out, pulled it between, and it was a 5-gallon jug full of white lightning. So we went way down in South Georgia, way down there around a little town. And we unloaded that and come back. He never did drink anything, but I did a little sometime, but I didn't drink much at all at that time. And then one time this guy, he was a wonderful guy. He come to me and he said, well, he got a big old truckload of watermelon. And he wanted me to go with him. We went way down to Carabel, Florida with that load of watermelon. And then he went out doing something, selling them watermelons, and I stayed down there, out there and fished off of the dock there at in there that place, Carabel. And then he did the selling, and I just stayed back out of the way and let him go at it, so he did. And then we come back, and I went out on the dock there, and I'd done a lot of fishing there, but all we caught was great big old modesty catfish, and they wasn't no good for anything because they cleaned up around that pier there. They had a place where they cleaned the fish and then packed them there. And then whenever they did that, I just stood around there and threw the line out there. I didn't have a pole, but I just threw the line out and put some mullet on it, fish on it, pieces, and threw it out there, and a little bit they'd take it. Then I'd pull it up, bring him in, take him off, fix it up, and throw it back in there again. So he got to come back, and we left and come back home. And then a little bit later from that, I went back up toward northern Georgia, up that way. From there, this was down where it happened down around Thomasville, where that was. And so I went up there, and what I did then, I did a lot of running around and hunting, and had a 12-gauge shotgun. I was hunting squirrels and rabbits. So I'd climb the trees sometime when I was there, and go up the tree and see a big old squirrel's nest in that tree, and I'd go up there and kick that out, and there'd be a big old possum in it. Sometimes I'd use a slingshot, shoot up into that thing, but I'd shoot a couple of times, and he'd come out of there. And then I'd climb the tree, and I'd go up after him, and I'd bring him down, sling him around to keep him from biting me, and bring him down to the ground, and I'd take him to the house and put him in a cage. And there we'd feed him with sweet potatoes and peanuts and stuff like that. Got him good and fat, then we'd butcher him. But don't never let anybody tell you that they wouldn't eat a possum. I'll tell you, if they went through that depression like we did, they'd eat most anything. And so we'd have to, sometimes, a lot of times, my mom, we didn't have no grease to grease the pan with. If we cooked bread, she'd have to sprinkle a meal in the pan to bake the cornbread. That's about all we ever had. And our one place we lived at, just one guy. My dad was working for him there, and he was working around cleaning around the fences. At that time, we had rail fences, and he was working around the fence at that time. He went to have his burning brush and fire and stuff. He went and worked and went to have what they called a settlement that week. Found out that he was only paying my dad 20 cents a day, and after that, my dad wouldn't do it anymore, work for 20 cents a day. So that old gentleman, he went back up where he was getting Red Cross fire, they called it at that time, and had that stopped. And you talk about suffering, we really suffered. And that was really some hard times. Yeah, my mom, she had epileptic paralysis of polio, which everyone calls it. And she was real young, and she wasn't able to help with anything. But she did all that she could. She provided for her family and work and things. So there was a guy that worked down there in the woods, and he chipped the pine trees and got it where they get that rosin out of it. That's whenever they distilled it and got the pure stuff out of it. So I remember one time when me and my sister, we'd always take that old black turkey down there and take him water, and he was so happy. Me and my sister would do that, take it to him. And he worked out there in the woods just by himself. And we did that. Sometimes when we do that, he'd always, the next day, if he's going to be working there, he'd bring us a long, big old stick of peppermint candy. We'd just tickle to death to get that. It worked out real nice for him. And it did for us in the long run. We'd be glad to get most anything we get during them days. But we had a lot of fun with him, and he was a real nice old guy. And then my mother, she was worked awful hard. Wasn't much able to work, but she was good to cook and things like that. But that's not all she could do. I know she could pick some cotton, but not very much. So we had to do that. So these old people, we lived on their place there. They was, well, I don't know just how to explain how it was, but they wouldn't do anything much for us, but we worked there. And he asked me if I'd stay out of school, and worked in field distributor with fertilizer for him. I'd do that. So he'd go one end of the row, and I'd put the fertilizer on, and he'd come back and put it in. The fertilizer was in the middle in big 200-pound sacks, all the way across the patch, cornfield. And that way, when he'd go one end and come back, I'd fill it for him. He'd go the other end and back and fill it for him. We did that, and we do that all day, except when we go for dinner, we call it lunch. Then we got on the train, and everybody on there but one got drunk. I don't know where they got their money. Some of the kids must have seemed to me like they did give us money when we first got on the train. So, boy, we went around that train, some of them kids got drinking. They'd talk, honk. Boy, that old sergeant, he come back through there into that car where we was all at, and he really chewed them guys for pulling that belt. You ain't supposed to do that. That's allowed to pull the brakes on. These kids are really having a big time. So we went on and went up to got to Franklin, North Carolina, and the train had to turn around and back in. And them kids said, I know this is rare in the world because they have to back in. They'd never been anywhere much. That was real nice. One kid learned right at, I forget the name of that little place there. We was up in the Blue Ridge Mountains, some of them. And we stopped at this train station. We stopped to get something to eat or something. I don't know what the stop was. And they had chicken. They sailed to that train when it come through. People work there then. Here come this train started easing off. And here come this kid, I don't know where the girl or the boy, what it was, holding that basket up, chicken basket up with them kids. he just reached out and got it, and that train was done moving too fast.
Oh, no.
Poor guy, he flew out his basket. Didn't even keep his basket. Oh, boy. That was a bad time for him. That's been a long time ago, you know. Yeah, that's been, what, 70 years ago? Yes, but, yeah. No, not quite that far. 67. We've been married 67. So it was about 65 years ago.
67. I'll be 65 in November.
You will.
Yeah.
Well, that was before then.
Oh, I don't remember it.
You don't know nothing about it, do you?
I don't.
No, that's after I got out of the CC camp. That was, I mean, after I got out of there, after I went to work at.
How'd you meet Mom?
Oh, yeah. Well, met her. That's how I met my spouse. That's in that reminisce tale sometimes in there. That's how I met her. I got to CC. We got up there to Robbinsdale when I in the CC. I signed up and they put me on the train, went to Franklin, and then I was transferred over to Robbinsdale. And one day, she was in the cafe there with Ethel. And Ethel, you know, Ethel couldn't have been more than, I've been right there. She must she was much older. Her and her boyfriend was in their taxi, and she was sitting in there with them. Well, first we come out of the cafe, and they went and got in the car, in the taxi. Her and Ethel, and her Ethel's boyfriend. So she went, then they told me, said, go get the taxi driver.
Hey, he comes.
Huh?
Who comes?
Oh, Harry, yeah, Harry said, go get the taxi driver. So I went and told him. He said, I'll be there in a little bit. So I went back over to the car, taxi, and Mom, and I said, slide over. I'm going home with you. So she slid over. That's when I met her. I see.
Hey, go get a taxi. Did he know you were going with us?
He didn't know a thing about what I told him. The poor guy. He might have thought I was interrupting something. I don't know. And I said, get over. I'm going home with you. We got out there, and her dad, her mom and dad played. Her dad was out there splitting wood with a big old double-bladed axe. Boy, I don't know if I wanted to ask him or not, but I said, he had a beard, you know, it looked like a hermit. And I said, well, could I take mine and could we take him to the movies? Yeah, sure, brother, we right there at 9 o'clock. Well, I'll tell you, I didn't hold off much of that time. I had them back in time. So we got took to the movies, and it rocked on and on and on. And I never went with anybody else. Yeah, we made it, and we still made it. I guess we must have been made for one another. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder. But we did. That was real good. So we went together, and I worked out at camp. Out at the forest out there. And they'd send me out there on the weekend to see if people registered. See, they had a big register booth there. And we'd read, well, it wasn't under a little thing. Had a book there, you just put where you're from and all that. So I did that for most of the summer. I did that. And then I'd stay out there all week. Yeah. Okay.
We went to the movies.
Oh, yeah. We went to the movies, and then we got back. We took them home. And me and Harry went on over to camp that night. And I don't know if I seen them the next day or whatever. I don't even know what. That must have been Saturday. Because that's the only time they'd have a movie like this Saturday. They just had a thing like a bar there. They had a movie projected the screen. That's about all they had there. They didn't have much at Robbinsdale. But we never went over. Well, I think we started one time. Me and a friend of mine started over to Andrews. Was going to go over there to go to a movie. But we went up what's called a Haven Gap. And it was was steep and rocky, and we walked out up to the top of that, and boy, we could see way over to Andrews. We changed our mind of going any further. So we started back. Boy, I got in trouble for going off. I had a guy to take my place. Well, I went, but he didn't show up. Then I got in trouble at camp. I had to get in the wood pile, start splitting wood when I got back. But that's the only time I had any. But you know, I learned something else too. We'll say that you got a block of wood, like that's a block of wood turned just like that, and then you cut wood. Instead of laying your piece of wood up on that block like that and then splitting it, that sergeant come by and seen me doing it. He said, what in the world you doing there? You want to split your foot open, take the government, keep you the rest of your life? He showed me, then you lay that over this way, then split down on that. And that way ain't no danger. And I learned something there. We learned a lot of things when I was in there. We learned a lot about the forest in there. It was beautiful. That's what I like about my camp. It shows that the Forest Service, where we really worked for the Forest Service.
Yeah.
And built roads and trails. We did a lot of fire trails. And we had recreation. We had a lot of that. We had a big, nice pool room and everything there. And it was really nice. We had, that's one part of my life that I'll never forget. That's something I can always take to the grave with me. I really enjoyed that and enjoyed meeting her. And that's where we met, and the Lord has blessed us all the way. We might have had a little ups and downs, not little, but had ups and downs a lot of times, but the Lord has took care of us and protected us. When I married her, I said, as long as I live, you know, I said, how you say,
Till death do us part. Till death do us
till
part.
death do us part. And I've always kept that. I couldn't walk away on account of that too, for one thing. But it sure has gotten bad a few times. I don't blame her with all of it either. I have to blame myself for part of it too. But it's been a hard time. There ain't nobody, well, there's a few people that suffered through that all that time. My folks didn't have a thing in the world to give us when we got married, and her folks didn't either. We didn't have nothing. And I even borrowed $1 to give to the just the peace when we went to get married. And it's been, but other than that, we struggled. A lot of times we didn't have much of anything to eat, but I said I would never let my kids go hungry. We went hungry. That during the Depression. But we didn't have it too fine even without the Depression. Before the Depression, it wasn't too bad. We had little something, but we went enough of that. I mean, my parents didn't have much of anything. But we struggled through it and made it, but we had some awful rough times in that Depression. And there ain't nobody, I got a book that tells about that. I don't know if you ever read that or not, but I'll let you have it sometime. It says we had everything but money. And we had love. We must have had a lot of love for one another, the family did, our family. My brothers and sisters and all. We had little scraps when we were young, but we never tried to kill each other. And we never did pout where we didn't really would talk or want to talk to one another and play around with each other. We always got along as far as that goes. We never did have no real bad thing about it. But I suffered and I survived. That's one thing. Now, I doubt if some of these kids could survive now like we did at that time. But we learned. And we know what it's like because we were there. And we suffered through it and got away.
What did you say about your dad?
Oh.
You didn't say something about your dad?
And my dad was getting up in age at that time. And, he was 50 years old when I was born.
Oh, really?
So that was 1916. He was 50 years old. Then, I didn't know.
What kind of work did he do?
Who, my dad? He worked on the farm there with the best of us. And, but we didn't, you can't believe, ain't nobody knows what that was like at that time. So they have to suffer it. And they don't forget it. They never forget how they're treated. I worked this one guy on the farm there with him, and the sucker tobacco was 15 cents a day. Is what I got. Of course, I was a kid. I didn't do a whole lot, and I shouldn't even have been out of school and out there doing that. I was. Of course, I was sucking tobacco. There wasn't much school going on at that time. Yeah. Boy, that's sure. But you don't never forget that. I went back to North Carolina, and we went to Florida. When Daddy was a baby, we went to Florida. And we rode to Florida. We didn't have no money. We went to Georgia and stayed there until we didn't get no money to go on in. And my brother wrote and told us he had a job there. So I went down there. And we went down there and found it. Well, the way we got there, we didn't have no money to go. My folks didn't have nothing. And we got a ride on a fish truck. Daddy was a baby. We didn't have nothing to eat. She didn't have nothing. Me and Mom didn't have nothing. But some people gave Daddy, what was that they gave, an apple? Yeah, they gave her an apple. And she did good. You know, she didn't cry and carry on hardly anything. It was real nice.
Well, the way the fish truck was, it was these people going down to work in Florida for the winter. They had their bedding and mattress and everything. Just to back up where it was, people that was just going down there to work and whatnot. All had to get in on all that sit and stand and whatever.
But anyhow, we went, I went to work for him, 1936, 35 first. And I worked for him at a cane mill. He come up right on where he found me and what happened at 35. He wanted me to go feed the cane mill. What they did, they had a mill and run the gasoline engine, that roller. And you run that cane through that thing and it squeezed all the juice out of it. And he had a vat and he had a pipe that when the juice come down, it'd run into that vat. Well, then they had a big, long evaporator, they call it. I believe the way they call it. And that juice would run in at this end, and when it run out of the other, it had bars in it, open gap bars. And they'd go through one and then run around at the other end, on the other side, back to this side through a bar, and back the other way. And when they got the other end, it was sugar. It was syrup. So I'd get up every morning, and I'd get about 5 o'clock and start running that cane mill so I would have enough juice made up for him to start making syrup. And I did that till I'm at about 5 or 6 weeks, 5 weeks I think, or 6, maybe 6. And we made an awful lot of sugar cane syrup, pure syrup. It was really good syrup. And then I don't know where he found me and how he got a hold of me needing a job. I just run all over the country for just doing nothing.